The situation in Zimbabwe, a story we continue to focus on throughout the day. Let's give you political reaction now. I'm joined on the line by the spokesperson for MDC leader Nelson Chamisa. His name, Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda. Dr. Sibanda, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The situation at the moment, how dire is it?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. The situation is as bad as it's ever been. I think the temperatures are even higher than we had them at the time that Mugabe was kicked out of office because this is ordinary people of Zimbabwe without any military assistance. They are tired and economically the situation is worse than it was in 2008 because really people can't do anything. People can't move, and this has been imposed on them overnight by an insensitive government whose members and their families seem to have a lot of wealth and are getting richer by the day. And surely that is making things worse. I think we should expect that the people of Zimbabwe are not going to back down. The Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions is right to be concerned about the welfare of its members. And look, President Nelson Chamisa has warned the government that it must not ignore the plight of the people of Zimbabwe, and agrees that the current situation requires immediate action, which is why a few days ago he advised Mnangagwa and his government that there should be some kind of national dialogue between various constituencies and various citizens of the country to try and resolve the political and economic crisis that we have going on right now. And there is no way out, really. There must be a dialogue between Zimbabweans to find something that's going to be long-lasting, that impacts the politics, which has a huge say on how the economics of the country proceeds.
So before we get into the details of that proposal for solutions, just talk to us about the protests that have been taking place today in the context of the freedom of assembly and freedom of expression. How has it gone today? And I've seen a few incidents that have been reported, but largely, how has the protest gone?
Well, President Chamisa went out this morning to go and see for himself, monitor for himself what was happening, and what he witnessed were peaceful demonstrations initially before the military and the police arrived, where people were gathered singing songs peacefully, demanding that there be a resolution to the economic crisis and that it be immediate and that they could no longer carry on at all. And then you had the arrival of the police in various places, specifically where the president was. You notice that the police simply arrived heavy-handedly. In fact, it was the military. They arrived heavy-handedly and they were very violent when there was no need for those levels of violence. The president also received reports later on as he was planning to go further to Glenview, where he received reports that the police were already shooting at people, and as of now, we have credible reports that nearly 6 people across the country have been shot at and injured, several arrested for no particular reason. But we also have indications that the violence visited upon the people by the military is in fact causing a response in which citizens are beginning to barricade roads and burn tires in order to prevent police and military vehicles from reaching their residences. Because we have reports of police attacking people in their residences for no particular reason, breaking properties and windows. And obviously the reaction from the citizens is to protect themselves from the violence of the state.
And are you politically involved in giving direction and sort of leading from the front in these particular protests? And if so, what are the implications that you expect will follow?
Well, look, the president sympathizes and understands. The president warned that if the situation, President Chamisa I'm talking about, that if the situation is not resolved, if Mnangagwa's government does not resolve the situation very quickly, Zimbabweans are going to be left with no option. And look, all Zimbabweans are in this. President Chamisa certainly was observing this as a citizen who's concerned, who's suffering under the same circumstances. But clearly what is happening here is that ordinary Zimbabweans of all walks of life. We talked today, the president had members of ZANU-PF talking to him about how terrible the situation is and how they feel that something has got to move. So it really isn't a question of who is who and what party they belong to right now. It is unified action taken by all the citizens of this country, unified that our problems must be resolved and we cannot be held at ransom by the few members of the leading clique in ZANU-PF that is itself captured by the military. So it has nothing to do with a partisan position. This is about the welfare of the people of Zimbabwe. But when leadership is required, the President, Nelson Chamisa, says he will provide leadership and will call for a national dialogue, will call for other actions that include making sure that the police and the military and the state does not continue to use disproportionate violence. He is warned, in fact, that it is as dangerous to continue to use violence as it is to just change prices threefold overnight. So this government must not make the situation worse or have any illusion whatsoever that it can continue to repress people forever. You can't do that, and many dictatorships have learned it the hard way. Mnangagwa and Chiwenga do not want to go out this way. They must be warned that the actions they are taking right now, killing people, may mean that they are going out because the people no longer want to dialogue. President Nelson Chamisa is still calling for dialogue because he believes that this country needs to move forward. But the people may take things into their own hands if President Mnangagwa does not realize the importance of dialogue in moving our country forward.
Dr. Sibanda, you keep making reference to a national dialogue. I mean, if we rewind a few years back, the situation as it stood in 2008, at the point at which we thought this is as bad as it can get, was resolved through a national dialogue in which you participated as the MDC in a government of national unity and held a few of the portfolios there. And I mean, a lot of people will say that only provided reprieve rather than a permanent solution. So what will a national dialogue achieve this time around?
Well, look, the national dialogue that we had in 2008 running up to 2009 was only, and in fact mainly concentrated on resolving the national political crisis as it related to the stolen election at the time. But what we have today is that President Nelson Chamisa has identified 5 key issues that do not affect how government is run or will be run in the next 3-4 years. He has looked at key issues that will affect how our country becomes a more institutionalized, a more democratic country over the next 100 to 200 years. He said he wants to talk about, once and for all, the institutionalization of commissions, independent commissions, such as the Anti-Corruption Commission, because he recognizes corruption is one of the biggest ills. That is why our economy is on its knees. And the President Nelson Chamisa wants to resolve that. He wants to resolve problems relating to the Election Commission, making sure that it's independent. This is going to guard our democracy for the next 200 to 300 years. He wants to talk about how we re-engage with the international community. This is one thing that remained undone in 2008, where our re-engagement with the international community did not resolve once and for all the issues that the rest of the world were worried about, issues of human rights, democracy, the freedom of expression, and freedom of assembly and freedom to protest. And those were not resolved. The ZANU-PF remained in control of those things. The president wants to resolve issues once and for all around devolution, etc. So what President Nelson Chamisa has done is identify those issues that will unlock our country, its potential, and ensure that our democracy is etched in stone so that no one can play around
Final
with
question
it.
then,
What we had in 2008 was that...
final question for you then. The issues you raise sound more like... the issues you raise sound more like medium to long-term issues. In the interim, right now, as people are facing a situation where fuel costs double what it cost at the end of last week, and everyday goods are disappearing from the shelves on a day-to-day basis, and people are facing a really precarious situation. What are the immediate interventions that you are proposing as the MDC?
The immediate interventions is to revert back to the position, as President Nelson Chamisa said, before these unreasonable policies were announced, and then immediately go into national dialogue. And that national dialogue is hoped, and President Chamisa knows this, is hoped that national dialogue will unlock some of the distrust and allow a little bit of confidence in our economy, allow even the local people. Look, one of the biggest problems we have is that our local people aren't trading with the government. They are not sending their money to government, they are keeping it. As a result, the government is being starved, yet it still has to order fuel for the rest of the country. So when you have something that resembles trust, if President Nelson Chamisa were to say today, we have had a discussion, we would like to move in a particular direction, it looks as though it is very clear that the people of Zimbabwe will heed that call, because no one in Zimbabwe, more than the people of Zimbabwe themselves, wants this situation resolved. No one has been as patient as the Zimbabweans, but no one is as resolved as the people of Zimbabwe today. If you look at what they've been doing throughout the morning and the campaigns they've had overnight around resolving the crises that have been caused by unheard of levels of corruption by the Mnangagwa government and their families.
All right, thank you so much for that. That is Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda, who speaks on behalf of the leader of the MDC in Zimbabwe, Nelson Chamisa.